At its heart, Formula One has been a gladiatorial arena where drivers, strapped inside machines that push the limits of physics, battle not just rivals from other teams, but sometimes the man sitting right across from them in the same garage. For decades, the sport has thrived on drama. The grudges, the tensions, the rivalries that have defined entire eras. From Ayrton's Senna and Alain Prost's tension to Nico Rosberg's cold mental warfare against Lewis Hamilton, the sport's bad boys gave fans not only breathtaking racing, but also storylines that felt larger than life. But fast forward to today, and many are asking, has that fire dimmed? With the recent case of Lando, Norris and Oscar Piastri at McLaren showing almost too much cordiality, some fans wonder, has Formula One lost its edge? Have the bad boys disappeared? The present, Norris versus Piastri at McLaren. Let's start with the moment that sparked this discussion. McLaren has what everybody knows the term papaya rules. The principles remain clear, perhaps even more than last year. The 2025 Italian Grand Prix was a perfect test case. The team orchestrated the pit stops to cover a threat from Ferrari, pitting Oscar Piastri first. But a slow stop for Lando Norris flipped the order, putting the team in a delicate situation. If they did nothing, they'd be accused of favouring Piastri. If they swapped them back, they'd be accused of artificial manipulation. McLaren choose the latter. Andrea Stella calls it executing racing principles, agreed with the drivers to protect team unity. They point to consistency with their strategy in Hungary last year as proof. Internally, McLaren believes they are being fair and principled. This raised a larger question. Is this really what Formula One should be? Two young, hungry drivers, both desperate for their first win, holding back in the name of harmony. Fans couldn't help but compare this to earlier times when teammates would fight tooth and nail. Consequences be damned. At McLaren, everything seems almost too cordial. Norris and Piastri respect each other, exchange smiles in interviews, and toe the party line. But is that really fair? Shouldn't drivers be selfish, fighting for every opportunity, even if it risks upsetting their teammate? In Formula One, where only one driver can truly become world champion, cooperation has its limits. And if Norris or Piastri ever want to etch their names into history, maybe the time will come when being nice just won't cut it. To understand why fans are restless, we need to revisit some of the greatest teammate rivalries in modern Formula One. Moments when the sport was at its most explosive, precisely because the drivers involved refused to play nice. Senna versus Prost. Perhaps the most famous rivalry of them all. Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost were teammates at McLaren in 1988 and 1989, a period that produced unforgettable drama. Senna, the fiery Brazilian, raced with raw aggression and an almost spiritual belief that he was destined to win. Prost, the calculating Frenchman, was clinical, strategic, and politically shrewd. Their relationship deteriorated quickly. In 1989, at Suzuka, a collision between them decided the championship in Prost's favour. A year later, at the same circuit, Senna returned the favour with a move so ruthless it remains controversial to this day, deliberately colliding with Prost to secure his own title. It was war inside the same garage, and McLaren was powerless to contain it. The spectacle was electric, dividing fans and igniting debates that endured decades later. This wasn't cordiality. This was Formula One at its rawest, its most dangerous, and for many, its most thrilling. Alonso versus Hamilton. Fast forward to 2007. McLaren once again became the stage for a civil war. Fernando Alonso, arriving as a two-time world champion, expected number one treatment. Instead, he found himself challenged by a fearless rookie, Lewis Hamilton, who matched his pace from the very first races and even beat him on occasion. The tension escalated throughout the season, but Hungary was the breaking point. Qualifying brought a surreal sequence. McLaren fitted Alonso's car with used tyres, leaving him puzzled and asking why over the radio. Then, in the pit lane, Alonso stayed stationary long enough to block Hamilton, preventing him from completing an extra flying lap. The irony, by McLaren's own internal gentleman's rule, Hamilton wasn't even supposed to take that additional lap in the first place. Alonso took pole, Hamilton was left fuming, and the aura inside the team turned toxic. From then on, the garage split into factions, each driver fighting for his own interests. The situation got worse with the infamous Spygate scandal, and by season's end, both men had lost the championship to Kimi Räikkönen. Their rivalry remains legendary, a stark reminder of what happens when neither side yields. Vettel versus Webber at Red Bull, the tension wasn't just a flashpoint, it was a prolonged battle. Sebastian Vettel, seen as the golden boy, often appeared to receive preferential treatment over Mark Webber. That favoritism became visible as early as 2010, when in Turkey, Vettel and Webber collided while fighting for the lead. Things worsened at Silverstone the same year. Vettel was given the only available upgrade, while Webber was forced to stick with the older spec. After winning the race regardless, Webber fired back over the radio with a line that cut deep. Not bad for a second driver. It summed up years of frustration. The final explosion came in Malaysia 2013, the infamous Multi-21 incident. Webber was leading when the team instructed both drivers to hold position. Vettel ignored the order, passed Webber and took the win. Webber's icy message, Multi-21, Seb. Multi-21 made it clear that their relationship had reached its breaking point. Red Bull's dominance during those years may have looked smooth from the outside, but inside it was a battlefield. Hamilton versus Rosberg. Perhaps the closest modern parallel to Senna and Prost came at Mercedes. Childhood friends Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg entered Formula One together, but when Mercedes built a dominant car, their friendship collapsed into one of the sport's fiercest rivalries. The first big flashpoint arrived at the 2016 Spanish Grand Prix, where Hamilton and Rosberg collided on the opening lap, taking each other out and leaving Toto Wolff seething with anger. The tension only escalated. In Austria later that season, the pair collided again on the final lap as Hamilton tried to overtake Rosberg for victory. Hamilton won. Rosberg limped home with a broken car. These weren't isolated clashes. Psychological warfare, constant one-upmanship, and visible animosity turned the Mercedes garage into a battleground. Ultimately, Rosberg won the 2016 championship, but the cost was immense. He shocked the world by retiring immediately afterward, admitting the stress of fighting Hamilton had taken everything out of him. For fans, however, the rivalry was pure gold, bringing drama and intensity that kept F1 alive during an otherwise predictable era of Mercedes dominance. Back to the present. Where are the bad boys now? And so, we return to today. Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are two of the most talented drivers of their generation. Both are capable of winning races and maybe even championships. But the question is, do they have the edge, the selfishness, the ruthlessness that history shows is often necessary to climb to the very top? So far, they've been model teammates. Too model, perhaps. McLaren's garage radiates harmony, but harmony can only last so long. What happens the day both are fighting for the same victory? What happens when a championship is on the line? History tells us that true greatness often emerges not from cooperation, but from conflict. Senna didn't become a legend by yielding to Prost. Hamilton didn't cement his legacy by bowing to Alonso or Rosberg. Vettel didn't apologize for ignoring team orders. They all took what they believed was theirs, sometimes at any cost. Today, with Norris and Piastri, we see two extraordinary talents playing by the rules, showing respect and avoiding conflict. But is that really what we want from Formula One? Has the sport lost its bad boys, its rebels, its warriors willing to risk everything? Or are we simply witnessing a new kind of professionalism, where teamwork outweighs ego and harmony is valued over chaos? What do you think? If you were in Lando Norris's position, or Oscar Piastri's, would you follow team orders and keep the peace? Or would you fight for your own interests, no matter the cost?